everyone, welcome to our podcast. My name is Elena.
And I'm Jack. We are so happy to have you here with us today.
Yes, thank you for joining us. In today's episode, we'll talk about something important and very common, applying for a visa.
That's right. Many people need a visa when they want to visit, study, or work in another country, but the process can be confusing, especially if English isn't your first language.
Exactly. So we'll help you understand how to apply for a visa. But before we start, let's go over some key words that we'll use today.
Great idea. Here are the words.
The first word is visa. A visa is an official document or stamp in your passport that gives you permission to enter a country for a specific purpose, like visiting, studying, or working.
Next is passport. This is a little book that your country gives you. It shows who you are and lets you travel to other countries.
Then we have application. An application is a form you fill out with your personal information. You use it to ask for something like a visa.
Another word is embassy. An embassy is the office or building of your country in another country. You often go to the embassy to apply for a visa.
And the last one for now is interview. This is when you meet someone like a visa officer who asks you questions to learn more about you and your reasons for applying for the visa.
Good. We'll explain these words more as we talk. So, Elena, when someone wants to apply for a visa, where do they start?
Well, the first step is to check if you need a visa for the country you want to visit. Some countries allow you to travel without a visa if you're staying for a short time.
That's true. For example, if you're from Europe, you might not need a visa to visit other European countries. But if you're traveling to the US or Canada, you usually need a visa.
Right. If you do need a visa, the next step is to visit the website of the embassy of the country you want to go to. There, you can find all the information about what documents you need and how to apply.
Speaking of documents, let's talk about some common ones people need when they apply for a visa.
Good idea. One important document is your passport. Make sure it's valid. This means it hasn't expired.
You also usually need a photo of yourself. The photo has to follow certain rules, like size and background color.
And don't forget the visa application form. This is the form you fill out with your information, like your name, date of birth, and the purpose of your visit.
Sometimes they also ask for a bank statement. This shows you have enough money to pay for your trip.
Yes, and if you're going to study or work, you might need an acceptance letter from the school or a job offer from the company.
Good point. Once you have all your documents, you can usually submit them online or take them to the embassy.
Right, but don't forget there's often a visa fee. You need to pay this fee before they process your application.
And after you submit everything, you might have to wait for a few weeks to get your visa. Sometimes you also need to go to the embassy for an interview.
Yes, the interview is a very important step. The visa officer will ask you questions to make sure everything is correct and to understand why you want to visit their country.
And it's okay to feel nervous, but remember, if you prepare your answers and have all your documents ready, you'll do fine.
That's true. Jack, do you have any tips for preparing for a visa interview?
Sure. First, practice answering common questions, like why do you want to go to this country? Or how long will you stay?
Yes, and try to answer clearly and honestly. It's also good to dress nicely to show respect.
Exactly. And bring all your documents, even if you think you might not need them. It's better to have everything with you.
Good advice. Applying for a visa can be stressful, but if you prepare well and follow the steps, it can go smoothly.
Yes, absolutely, Elena. And speaking of preparing well, one important thing to remember is to double-check all your documents before you submit them or attend the interview. Sometimes people forget small details, like signing the application form or bringing an extra copy of their passport.
That's true, Jack. Little mistakes like that can cause delays. It's also a good idea to check the specific requirements for the visa you're applying for, as they can be different depending on the country or type of visa.
Exactly. For example, if you're applying for a student visa, they might ask for proof of enrollment at a school or university. But if you're applying for a tourist visa, they might ask for proof of a return ticket to your home country.
That's a great point. And let's not forget the importance of timing. Some people wait until the last minute to apply for their visa, but this can be risky because processing times can vary.
Yes, it's always better to apply early, at least a month or two before your trip, if possible. This way, if there are any problems, you'll have time to fix them.
Another thing to keep in mind is that every embassy has its own rules for how to apply. Some allow you to apply online, while others require you to apply in person.
That's right. And if you're applying online, make sure you have a good internet connection and scan all your documents clearly. If you're applying in person, don't be late for your appointment at the embassy.
Good advice, Jack. Do you think it's helpful for people to ask for help if they don't understand the visa process?
Definitely, Elena. If you're not sure about something, you can ask for help from someone who has applied for a visa before or even from a professional, like a travel agent. Just make sure they're trustworthy.
And some embassies also have helplines or websites where you can find answers to common questions. So don't be afraid to reach out if you need help.
Exactly. The key is to stay organized and take your time. Applying for a visa might seem complicated, but if you break it down into small steps, it becomes much easier to manage.
That's so true. And one final tip for this part: always stay honest during the process. Whether it's filling out the application form or answering questions in the interview, honesty is very important.
Absolutely, Elena. Lying or giving false information can get your application rejected, or worse, you could be banned from applying for a visa in the future.
Yes, honesty is always the best policy. All right, let's continue discussing more tips and experiences with the visa application process.
You're right, Elena. Honesty is so important, and it's something visa officers take very seriously. Let's talk more about what happens during the visa interview because this is where many people feel nervous.
That's a good idea. Jack, what do you think people should expect when they go for their interview?
Well, first, they should expect to wait. Sometimes embassies are very busy, and you might need to wait for your turn, even if you have an appointment.
That's true. So bring some patience with you. And when it's your turn, remember to stay calm and confident. The officer isn't there to scare you, they just want to understand your reasons for applying.
Exactly. The officer will probably ask you questions about your trip, like why are you going to this country, or how long will you stay? It's important to answer clearly and honestly.
Yes, and it's okay if your English isn't perfect. The officer just wants to understand you. If you don't understand a question, you can politely say, "I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? Or can you explain, please?"
That's a great tip, Elena. Another thing to remember is body language. Even if you're nervous, try to sit up straight, smile, and make eye contact. This helps show that you're confident and trustworthy.
Good point. And don't forget to bring all the required documents with you to the interview. The officer might ask to see them, and it's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared.
Absolutely. It's also helpful to organize your documents neatly, like in a folder, so you can find them quickly if the officer asks for something.
That's true. Now, Jack, some people worrying that they'll say the wrong thing during the interview. What advice do you have for them?
I'd say, don't overthink it. Just answer the questions truthfully. For example, if the officer asks, "Who is paying for your trip?" and your parents are helping you, just say that. The officer isn't looking for perfect answers, just honest ones.
Exactly. And remember, the officer is also looking for proof that you'll return to your home country after your trip. So, if you have a job, family, or school waiting for you, be ready to mention it.
That's a great point. Showing that you have strong ties to your home country can help the officer feel confident that you'll follow the visa rules.
Yes, and one more thing, don't be discouraged if the officer asks a lot of questions. They're just doing their job and making sure everything is clear.
Absolutely, Elena. And if everything goes well, the officer will let you know the next steps, like how long it will take to process your visa or how you'll get your passport back.
That's right. And sometimes you might get your visa on the same day, but other times it might take a few days or weeks. So it's important to plan your trip with enough time for the visa process.
Yes, planning ahead is key. All right, let's keep exploring other important aspects of applying for a visa.
That's right, Jack. Planning ahead really makes a big difference. And speaking of planning, let's talk about what people should do if their visa application gets rejected. It's not something anyone wants, but it does happen sometimes.
That's a great idea, Elena. If your visa is rejected, the first thing to do is stay calm. It can feel disappointing, but it's not the end of the world. You can always try again.
Exactly. The embassy usually gives a reason for the rejection, so it's important to read that carefully. It could be something small, like missing a document or not explaining something clearly during the interview.
Yes, and if it's something like that, you can fix the issue and apply again. For example, if you didn't show enough proof of your financial situation, you can add more documents next time.
Right. It's also a good idea to ask for advice if you're not sure why your visa was rejected. Sometimes, talking to someone who has experience with visas, like a travel agent or even a lawyer, can help you understand what went wrong.
Definitely. And remember, every country has its own rules and requirements for visas, so what works for one country might not work for another. That's why it's so important to read the instructions carefully.
Yes, preparation is key, but Jack, what about people who are afraid to apply again because they think they'll be rejected again?
That's a good question, Elena. I'd say it's important to learn from the first experience. If you understand what went wrong and fix it, your chances of getting the visa next time are much better.
Absolutely. And sometimes, the second time is much easier because you already know what to expect. So don't give up if the first attempt doesn't work out.
That's great advice. Another thing to keep in mind is being patient. The visa process can feel slow, but rushing through it or skipping steps usually doesn't help.
Yes, patience is so important. And remember, a rejected visa doesn't mean you're a bad applicant. It just means something in the application process needs improvement.
Exactly. Also, some embassies let you appeal the decision if you think the rejection was a mistake. It depends on the country, but it's worth looking into if you feel strongly about your case.
That's a good point, Jack. And let's not forget, applying for a visa isn't just about following rules, it's also about showing the embassy that you're a responsible traveler.
That's true, Elena. Whether it's having all your documents in order, being honest, or planning your trip well, these small details can make a big difference in the visa process.
Absolutely, Jack. Now, let's continue discussing some final tips and advice for anyone applying for a visa.
That's a great idea, Elena. So, to wrap things up, let's go over some final tips for anyone applying for a visa. One of the most important things is to stay organized. Keep all your documents in one place so you don't lose anything important.
Yes, and don't forget to double-check all the details on your application form, like your name, passport number, and travel dates. Even a small mistake can cause delays.
Exactly. And practice answering common interview questions if you need to attend an interview. The more prepared you are, the more confident you'll feel.
That's true. And remember, every country has different rules for visas, so always read the instructions carefully on the embassy's website. Don't assume it's the same as another country you've applied to before.
Good point. And if you have any doubts or questions, don't hesitate to ask for help. Whether it's a trusted friend, a travel agent, or even the embassy's helpline, there are people who can guide you.
Yes, and most importantly, don't let the process discourage you. Applying for a visa can feel overwhelming, but if you take it step by step, it's manageable.
Exactly, Elena. So, to summarize everything we've talked about, here are the main points. 1. Start early and plan ahead. 2. Make sure your passport is valid and collect all the required documents. 3. Be honest in your application and during the interview. 4. Stay calm and confident even if you feel nervous. 5. If your visa is rejected, learn from the experience and try again.
That's a great summary, Jack. We hope this podcast has been helpful for you, whether you're applying for a visa for the first time or just want to improve your English.
Yes, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like our podcast, leave a comment, and share it with your friends and family.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any future episodes. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share your questions or ideas in the comments.
We really appreciate your support, and we hope to see you again soon in another episode.
Thank you so much. Everyone, take care and good luck with your visa applications.
Goodbye, and have a wonderful day.